so I could have my notes.
Hey, this is Maggie.
And this is James.
And you're listening to Directors on Tap,
the podcast where we sit down weekly to discuss film industry news, new favorites, and what we're watching.
Today we're talking about our favorite opening scenes.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, should we say something about our new look for our video that we're lo-fi today?
Go ahead.
All right, well, we weren't able to meet up today to record in person, so we're using Zoom. And as you can see, I have blankets behind me because my room has horrible acoustics, and this probably doesn't even rectify most of the acoustics. But I got pillows all around me and blankets, so my setup looks ridiculous. Mag's looks a bit nicer, as you can see.
I put my poster.
Ooh, Goodfellas.
Right there. It used to be on this wall, but I moved it for the episode.
Does that happen to be one of your picks?
It was on there, and then I took it off.
Oh, so it's what are they called? An honorable mention.
I also think this list is not like concrete. It's too hard to pick 5.
Same. I think at least 3 of mine are concrete, and then the last 2 are up in the air for me.
Probably same. Yeah.
So speaking of our list, we each picked 5 of what we think are our favorite openings. Me and Maggie had slightly different approaches. She picked what she thinks are like the best all time. I picked what I think are my personal favorites, though I would not say all of these are the best openings in my opinion. They're just ones that really grabbed me personally. So Max, you want to go first? You want to tell them what your first pick is?
So my first pick is The Dark Knight.
Very good pick. That was one of my
2008.
Yep, that was one of my runner-ups. All right, so
runner-ups.
Yep, I cut it from the list in favor of something else.
How dare you?
I knew you'd say that. How
dare you?
I knew it.
That is shameful.
It had some good competition. All right, so what's so great about this opening scene?
I can't believe you. Well, this has to be one of my favorite opening scenes ever. I think, well, first of all, it begins with the like blue tint of the Warner Brothers logo with the reverb drums, and that gives me chills every time because it's just this like sweep across the screen of the logo in this like blue and black dark contrasty tint, and it goes into that like blue smoke that engulfs the camera and fades into black, and then we see the like dolly into the building. And I remember when I saw that in the theater, it scared the shit out of me when the glass breaks on the window.
Yeah.
Because you like don't expect that. They're just zooming into the building, all of a sudden the glass breaks. And I just like jolted from that. And then there's also like the street corner where the Joker stands with his like mask face towards us. And I was thinking about that, and I think that was like that's the only mask we see like that's not on a face. Mm-hmm. Like all the other ones are on their faces and they never get taken off, and that was the only one that gets taken on and put on. Taken on put on and taken off. English.
English, it's difficult. Speaking of that mask, I don't know if this was an intentional reference. I'd have to check interviews with the director to see, but I haven't yet. But you mentioning it reminded me of it. Do you know what that's a possible reference to in the history of Batman?
No.
So, in the 60s Batman with Adam West, there's an episode where the Joker wears the same mask, or at least a very similar mask to the one that the Joker wears during the bank robbing scene. So...
wait, you know what? I think I did see that in like a behind the scenes.
Okay. So I didn't know if that was an intentional thing, or I mean, if it's not intentional, that's a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I was gonna say is I love like that right after the Joker shoots at the banker, there's this like dolly into his face, and he like cocks his head to the side like slowly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. It's such a good moment of direction.
Like that, And it just adds to like the look and feel of the clown mask.
It's a beautifully directed moment, a
Yeah.
beautifully performed moment.
It's such like a small thing. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't have noticed that the first like few times I watched
Yeah.
it, but it's like, or at least that it would. Obviously, I noticed it, but it didn't like stick with me. But
Yeah.
like that's such a good, that's a good moment.
especially since he's wearing a mask, obviously body movement becomes so much more important for expression.
Oh
And
yeah, 100%.
yeah, and then he nails it. With the combination of Heath Ledger obviously being a very good actor and Nolan being a very good director.
Yeah. Oh, the last thing I actually had about that was that I was like, it's funny because they compare. I think actually the Joker compares himself to a dog later on.
Yes,
So it's kind of like that's like detail too
the
of where the dog cocks his head. So I was like, oh, maybe that was like a part of that detail. But
yeah, to build on some of the things I love about that that stand out to me the most is one where he talks about like the banker says something about like criminals like deserve, like Gotham used to have like better classes of criminals or whatever compared to nowadays, and the Joker like reveals himself as like something different, and then later on there's a callback to that where the Joker says like this town deserves a better class of criminal, and I'm like, I love that and just the no I killed the bus driver.
Oh wait, I wrote that.
And then boom.
Yeah, literally. That's what I wrote down, actually. That was my last line.
One of my
He's
favorite
like,
moments.
no. I killed a bus driver.
No. I killed a bus driver.
Bus driver? What bus driver?
And then the
He's
guy's
like, bus driver? What bus driver? And then it goes
Yeah.
right through the entrance.
golden.
Yeah, it's so good.
Such a good moment.
So good.
Oh,
I love
man.
how he actually, there's that too,
Yeah.
which is kind of part of the like cocking his head, where he's saying, no, I killed a bus driver. The camera's like moving around like this, and it's doing like a side pan around the other clown.
Yeah.
And the Joker's moving in the opposite direction.
Oh, he's like stepping out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like doing like a kind of the same thing, but kind of the same as cocking your head, but he's doing it like with his body.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. And it's like a good moment of like, once you've seen the scene, you're like, oh, he's anticipating the bus about to burst through the wall.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I also used to think that he was trying to position the other guy to get in front of the bus too.
I didn't think of that either. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Damn. All right. I guess does that wrap up our thoughts on the Dark Knight opening scene, or we got more?
No, that's it. I just
That's
think it's
it?
a great opening scene.
All right. So my first pick was Apocalypse Now. I don't know. Have you seen Apocalypse Now, Maggie?
Yeah, I watched it in my sound editing class last year.
Same. That's I think. No, wait. I'd seen it before that, but I remember watching it in my sound design. The thing that I absolutely loved I guess just the artistry of it. I just fell in love with all the fade-ins and the matching with like the propeller sounds going over top of the fan, and then just the voiceover with the proximity effect. And that actually inspired a lot. And I actually gave it in the notes that I gave to the actor, the short film version of Shut Out the Storm that I made, where I basically just told him, I was like, my friend Chris, who was starring in it, I was like, you've seen Apocalypse Now, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you know the opening dialogue or monologue? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do that. And because I love the whole feel of it, and the way it transitions from like the super just abstract shots of the slow motion explosions in the forest, and then goes into just, we're in his room. It's so seamless and beautifully well done. And with the music, and it could have easily went for spectacle, but it's so, especially because what we're seeing is very much spectacle, but the way it's presented is so restrained and cautiously and carefully presented, as opposed to like, whoa, check out all these huge in your face explosions, which can be a lot of fun, but it's just impressive that something that would obviously lean itself to that type of intro was instead taken in such a slow, like, careful opening. And every time I see it, I just fall in love with it. Coppola's just, he also did The Godfather, obviously, which was one of the things that almost got on my list. But his just beautiful restraint Coppola tends to have. And yeah. Oh, and I also, okay, that sort of reminds me of this interview that I saw of him, an interview clip. Speaking of just like the restraint and how high artistry that opening is, where it's very obviously trying to be beautiful as much as it can. Of this interview of him when he's on the set of that movie and he's talking about being pretentious in filmmaking, and he says like he's like, oh, poor filmmakers, you know, one of the worst things you can do is to be pretentious. And he's like, but he goes like, he's like, here's the thing, you try so hard to make something really mean something really good, and if you fail, then you're pretentious, and that's the worst thing ever. But if you pull it off, then you made something great. And it just makes me think of that opening, because like if it wasn't as well done as it was, then it would have obviously come off as just like, wow, this is trying too hard. But yeah, he did it. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
I'm trying to remember the part where the fans become the
propellers.
Like, isn't there a shot where it's like pulling up from the bed and you see the fan at the top and then it turns? Yeah, I loved that part, especially because the sound effect of the helicopter comes in really like slowly and it gets really intense.
Yeah.
And just really like sells it that fan is becoming the helicopter.
I don't know why that you mentioning going over the helicopter thing again specifically reminded me of this, but a fact about that opening scene is he was actually drunk when they were filming that. When he punched the mirror, he actually punched a real mirror and cut his hand open.
Oh, that I knew.
Yeah. Him breaking down into tears was also real because he was dealing with some personal crap.
Yeah.
And so, he basically just showed up on the set not in a good state, and then Coppola was like, we're going to use this, and he was like, I can do this, and Sheen was also like, I can do this. And again, another interview I saw with Coppola where he was like, he said he almost felt like he had to cut it, but he knew that Sheen would be pissed if he did cut it, because he was like, I don't feel right recording this, but he's like, but
yeah, that's kind of tough actually, but it definitely helps the like, I don't know, like the authenticity of it.
Exactly, because it was real. It's like Leonardo in Django Unchained when he cuts his hand open in that dinner scene. It's like, it just, knowing that it just comes across so much more real because it is real. Yeah. There's a lot of real stuff in that movie. Like, they actually killed an animal, not for the movie. It just happened to be happening and they recorded it. But yeah. All right. I think that's all I have to say about Apocalypse Now's intro. So what's your next pick?
My next one is Mission Impossible 3.
Oh, all right. That's speaking of action intros.
Yeah. Well, it's not that action filled though.
Well, Mission Impossible in general, but yeah.
Yeah. But the opening scene, this one, if you're not a fan, this is still considered, like, it was on a lot of the lists that I was looking at, but it might be a surprise to some people. But if you are a fan of this series, like, you know, it's like one of the best openings ever. Especially because, okay.
Oh, hold on. Describe the opening for people who haven't seen it.
Wait, you didn't describe your opening.
I thought I didn't. I say like,
no.
There's like there's the fade in with the fan and the bombings and. Anyways.
Well, okay, we kind of like touched on certain points that we like, but okay,
all right, give us broad strokes.
Well, it begins with Ethan in, like, strapped down to a chair, and across from him is this woman who you assume to be his wife, and she's got her mouth duct taped shut. She's in a chair, also strapped down, and then wait, I want to make sure it's Seymour Hoffman, right?
Yes.
Seymour. I just want to make sure I said that right. Okay, yeah. He's got a gun to her head, and Ethan's like saying, I can get you the rabbit's foot, and you don't know what that is at that point. It's just a code name. And eventually Seymour Hoffman just starts counting up to 10. and it just progressively gets more intense and intense as like Ethan tries to reason with him, and in the end well, actually I have it in my notes, he like the way they like keep like screaming at each other and telling each other what they're going to do, like Ethan screams like, I swear to God I'm going to kill you, and then Seymour Hoffman's like 7, 8 and then there's just like so many ways you could deliver like these one word lines, but Seymour Hoffman is just like terrifying.
I'm gonna kill you. I swear to God, I'm gonna kill you. 8!
Yeah, I was just saying, it really helps that they're both really good actors, especially Seymour Hoffman. Like he's great at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, Ethan is like, he's saying, he like kind of accepts that he has nothing left to like get him to stop, so he's just like shaking his head and he's like no, and you just like see this tear drip down his eye, and then Davian or Seymour Hoffman just looks at him with this like straight face, like it's like the easiest thing he's ever done. He's just like 10 and like then like it cuts to the opening title sequence and with that theme music. So
the iconic theme music.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. Yeah.
Extremely. Yeah, the I mean, we already said it, but just like the absolute intensity of their back and forth and the performances and also the way it's shot. Super intense. Super, especially in terms of if like the stuff that's happening, it feels very actiony, even though there's not a lot of action in the strict sense happening. It's just people yelling at each other, but it's so well rendered in an action format, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah. And it's also because like Seymour Hoffman's he doesn't have any lines where he's saying like Ethan's like, is that not what you wanted? Like, I got what you wanted. And he doesn't say like what it is or doesn't give him any information. He just keeps counting up to 10. He's like 5. Like, does not stop. That's all he says is like counts up to 10.
Yeah.
So it just makes it even more intense because there's no reasoning.
Yeah, it's more ominous and foreboding, I guess, threatening.
Yeah. And it's also like there's so many callbacks to it because that's builds up to the climax.
Exactly.
Later on. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
Well, speaking of favorite movies, take a guess at what my second pick was.
2001.
Of course. All right. So I had to pick this for being one of the most impactful openings I ever saw because I very, very distinctly remember the first time watching it. I remember like constantly hearing people saying like film people always, like directors specifically, always saying like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's got all these amazing moments. And like Scorsese and Spielberg in particular really, really freaking hype up this movie, which it deserves. And I remember at the time, my all-time favorite film was The Godfather, which is now probably number 2 in my all-time favorites. And I just remember the opening sequence. The music starts. We start to fade in. No, it's not even a fade in. It's just dark. We see like nothing. And then the camera moves up and we see these planets are aligned and the sunlight tilts out from the back. And then it hits up with the music. It's like, duh, duh. And then a Stanley Kubrick production. I'm just thinking, I remember the exact moment the first time I watched it going, Godfather's in trouble. Like that was the exact thought that went through my head. Like 15 seconds into the title sequence of this movie with this opening shot. And just that opening, whenever I see it, I'm just like, I need to, like, it inspires me to make something that good. Just with that insane opening with the planets and it being aligned and how well timed the music, the credits are with the centered composition with the leading lines back towards the center. And it's just, and it fits thematically with going through space and how our characters are moving the opposite. Anyways, it's just great. I love it. Just that opening, and then how that leads into the
isn't there the bone?
Yeah, so that happens at the about 40 minutes into the film, I think. So that's because that goes from space, and you're expecting this huge, like, oh, we're in space, amazing, we're gonna be in the future, and then it's like 40,000 BC, let's go, 400,000, whatever it is, dawn of man sequence.
Yeah.
And that, the way it just goes into that so well, I love it. One of the best things. The composition, every shot is so beautiful. One of the main things for me is just cinematography. Like, if a movie's pretty, even if it's trash, if it's pretty, I will watch the whole thing. And so
that's not a very popular comment from a filmmaker.
No, that's the thing. It doesn't mean that I'll think it's a good movie. I'm just pointing out that that's how much I enjoy cinematography, is that I'll be willing to watch a bad movie for the sake of watching the cinematography and just to appreciate.
It's usually the opposite, actually. It's like, even if it doesn't look pretty, if the story's there, that's what makes it.
See, I can usually handle that, like, but it's just, I mean, that works for me too. If the story's there and the cinematography subpar, it'll really annoy me, but I'll still watch it for the story. But I'll also just watch for the cinematography. But the fact that 2001 has such strong thematic representation in its cinematography, all the way from every shot looking like a painting, it's just, I love that opening sequence. Even though nothing particularly happens, we just watch space, then we see some monkeys doing monkey stuff, and it looks beautiful, and it's all thematically stuff. Maggie hasn't seen the movie, so she can't give that much input, but
I love how you just throw that in there right at the end.
Well, I wanted to explain, like, if they were like, how come Maggie's not commenting more? And it's like, well, she hasn't seen it, so yeah, what she needs to.
Whatever.
Anyways, I think that's all I have to say about it. Otherwise,
I think that's how I feel about
tangents.
Blade Runner, actually, the remake.
Yeah,
it looks pretty, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, so yeah, same. I was like, the script for the new Blade Runner is kind of a mess. Like, not kind of, is a mess.
I
but
fell
it's
asleep.
Very pretty.
So
yeah,
there's your answer.
There you go. Yeah.
I never fall asleep in theaters ever, and I fell asleep during that movie.
I fell asleep watching Rogue One, not because I was just very tired. I woke up for the Darth Vader scene though, and I was so happy about that. That was such a good thing to wake up to.
I think I did fall asleep in one of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah?
I saw Force Awakens, and I loved that. I think I did fall asleep in the one that was after that.
Oh, The Last Jedi? That's fine. That's trash anyways. I know that's a controversial statement to make, but it's trash.
I was also very tired. I was like, I couldn't keep my eyes open. It was a late movie too. Anyways. All right, moving on.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so my next pick is Up.
Oh, Up.
Oh my god. That was so sad. You're like,
Because it's sad.
Heart. Yeah, this is like such a well-known opening scene. Like, everyone knows this scene, and everyone knows the theme song. It might be one of the saddest opening scenes ever.
One of the best told love stories ever put to cinema, and it's
it's
like 2 minutes.
Such a short amount of time. Yeah. Yeah, I think what makes this scene great is the score and the callbacks to the memories that are shared in the opening scene later on in the movie. Like, we see them painting the mailbox, like reading a book hand in hand, cloud watching, and then those things are called back to later on in the movie, which is always nice to see. The other thing, I rewatched the opening scene earlier just so I could remember everything, and there's something that stuck out was that, like, he buys the plane tickets for the trip that they've been saving up for, and then that's when they cut to the shot of Ellie walking up the hill, and she can't make it up, and then that's where, like, they like kind of break down the score, and it gets really like, what's the word?
Emotional?
I was gonna say, yeah, well, no, obviously emotional, but it's like they break it down. It's not as upbeat. And so then they like transition into her getting old, and it's like kind of her time to go. And the shot that really made me sad was when Carl is sitting at the steps of the altar and the casket is gone and he just has one balloon in his hand, and it's just like dark around him, and it's like one shot
so
where it's
sad.
like the seats are like framing the shot inwards, and it's just him like by himself with one balloon, and he's just got the saddest look on his face, and that it's so good and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and like I love the way they set up, like, I think part of the thing that makes it work so well is like their sort of contrast. Like, even though they're both adventure-y, like the contrast between him being much more reserved and like her being the more like outgoing one, that contrast I think helps to it too, especially with him being the one that's left, because if it was the other way around where he was the more outgoing one, it would, what's the way to put it? It would be character-wise less solemn and more noisy, if he was the one who was upbeat after, because then it's sort of like, oh, the upbeat quirkiness, spontaneity is sort of gone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's more of a feeling for the audience, a more visible difference than it would have been if they made him the more upbeat one and he was still left.
I think him being more reserved too is like, it shows that, like, obviously you can tell that they've been together a long time, but they know each other. Like, they know how each other, like, she knows how he works. Like, there's like things where like she's tying his tie, or she's like helping, I forget what she's doing, but she's helping him do something where like usually he would get like frustrated, but because it's her that's helping him, it's like they know each other.
Yeah.
It like establishes that they
take care of
really
each
are
other.
like one. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
so good.
It's so good.
Makes me cry.
Yeah, cry every time.
Literally.
Oh man, what else is there to say about it? It's just so good. It's so well edited too. Like, there's no nothing unnecessary that made it into the final edit. Like, I'm sure they had more stuff that the editor cut out, and good on them for it, because even though I'm sure it would have been good stuff, it's so well paced, and I think they probably,
if I'm gonna guess, I think they might have had more shots of her like dying.
Yeah, probably.
And like maybe at the doctor's office or something, because we just see the one shot of the doctor's office, and it's just a
with the miscarriage
going like that.
Yeah, that too. Like that, it was, like normally I feel like a lesser edited film would have lingered on that way more, which wouldn't have necessarily been bad. It just wouldn't be as good.
That's totally true, because I think another movie would probably have that same shot, but then they would cut to like a medium or close up of the doctor saying something, even with no audio. But I mean, they just had that one shot.
And the fact that we're looking through like a doorway, and it's like, it adds to that sort of separated feeling of it. Like you're watching and you can't hear what's being said either. It sort of puts you into their framework. Like they just had a loss, and you feel separated from them, just like they feel separated from their dead kid, Yeah, sad. Very sad.
It's so sad.
Extremely.
All right, let's move on to something
All right,
else.
moving on to happier stuff. Let's see, what was my next pick? So my next pick was another Kubrick film. This intro, the soundtrack itself just gets me hyped, because it immediately makes me think of the opening sequence. Barry Lyndon. You mentioning the Warner Brothers logo in The Dark Knight reminded me of this, because this also starts with the Warner Brothers logo. It uses a briefly used logo that's just bright red. And so the music starts, and it's I can't remember the name of the composition, but it's super intense, like 17th century, just like do 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 do, and like the logo starts, and then it like flies towards the screen, and it gets super intense, and then it starts with like the opening credits and the fancy text timed up to the music, and then it says the part one, and then that goes into the narrator being like, Barry something Lyndon and his father and all this, and it has like this funny quip in it, but it's played like super straight, And then we just see this, and it's this close up of this flintlock pistol being loaded and getting ready for a duel. And then it just starts slowly zooming out and slowly zooming out and slowly zooming out. And you're like, when does this zoom out end? And you're like, this is like 4 different shots. How is this lens this zoomy? And it goes from a super close up to the loading a flintlock to this super far wide shot all in one continuous zoom. And then after all this drama and the serious narration, the guy that he just spent all this time hyping up just gets shot and dies right there. And the combination of amazing, I think just objectively is a great, extremely well executed opening, but also that music in particular also just gets me hype, especially with then the contrast of going from such a serious opening to just like a dinky, like, oh, he gets shot, moving on type thing. Love it. And it's just beautifully shot. If you guys haven't seen Barry Lyndon, every single frame is literally purposely looks just like a 17th century painting. No, actually 16th century painting, because it'd be the 1700s. Wait, no, 18th century. My brain is not working. Point is, it looks people say movies look painterly, but you could literally show someone any given shot from Barry Lyndon, and they'll probably assume it's a painting. It's so well done and so beautifully composed, shot with almost all natural lighting. There's some exceptions where they had to make windows look like it was brighter outside than it was, but Kubrick insisted on using as much natural and candlelight as they could, so nothing looks artificial. You can actually see the lighting in the sky changing as the clouds move. Beautifully done altogether, just with that opening sequence. Everything's beautiful about it, and I love it. Gets me hyped to listen to the music for it. All right. I think also Maggie hasn't seen that either. We got to do a Kubrick marathon. Okay. Anyways, Max, what's your next pick?
I definitely like those kind of shots though, where they're like, you're saying it was a zoom.
It's he actually had a custom built zoom lens. It goes from, I think it went from like 14 to 400. I think it went from basically extremely fisheye wide to hyper zoom.
Yeah, that definitely builds tension.
Yeah. But yeah, Kubrick over his career had a lot of lenses custom built for him, and that was one of them, because he was like, I want to zoom. So yeah, he had several custom built lenses for that movie. He also had NASA build him one that would allow him to shoot in candlelight, because they didn't have the technology for that at the time. So he was like, the people at NASA like me for 2001. I'm going to pull a favor. And but yeah, so that's all I have to say about the opening for Barry Lyndon. So your next pick, Mags.
My next one is Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, that was another one that was a runner-up on my list.
Well, I picked it for you then.
There you go.
Yeah, that one. There's a lot to say about it. I think the dynamic that is. I guess I should explain a little bit, except I don't know everything about the.
Mm-hmm.
So. It's Hans Landa.
I can't remember.
I think it's
the last
Landa.
name, but it's Hans something.
I think it's Landa. Okay, Hans. So he's
in the SS, isn't he?
SS, I think. Right?
Yeah.
So he's coming to it's Pirier, I think. Pirier.
I don't know the name of the town.
I think it's like La Padite.
Some French place.
Like that. No, that's the guy's name.
Yeah, but it's in France, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm saying that was the guy's name that he went to the house.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
That's hiding. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so anyways, the maybe you should explain that, just like the premise.
I mean,
I'm not good with that.
All right, so this dude is hiding Jews in his basement, because World War II, and the Nazis show up and they're like, we've been suspecting that you're hiding some Jews. And he was like, oh, no, not at all. And I can't remember what they do to figure it out.
No, he already, you know what? Okay, I thought he already knew. And also, Someone said in the YouTube comments of the scene that when he goes to grab the girl's hand or something, he's actually checking her pulse.
Oh, that's.
And it
I'll
was
have to rewatch
racing.
this scene.
So that's how he knew that they were hiding them.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's true, but that would be pretty cool if that was it. I really like the dynamic between Hans and I think it's Pierre.
French dude.
It's Perrier. You don't pronounce the R.
I
How would
don't.
you
I don't speak
pronounce that?
French. I don't know.
It's like Pierre. I'm just gonna say Pierre. And like Hans seems like super genuine at first, and he's just like having fun.
He's a likable monster.
Yeah, but he already knows the outcome.
Yeah.
And he like says things like, "Oh, make yourself comfortable. It's your house."
Uh-huh.
And then like very, very quickly switches to something like serious and terrifying. He goes from like being a smiley, like happy person to immediately straight faced and intimidating. And
yeah. No, you go. Sorry. You keep going.
what was I gonna say? Just go.
All right. I was gonna say he's a really good example of how good Tarantino is at basically making horrible things likable, whether it's good characters doing horrible things, but in a way that's that you find yourself rooting along with. Like for example, in what was his last one? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's bashing this teenage girl. I mean, granted they were murderers, or attempted murderers, but he's like bashing her face in after she's already clearly dead. And it, like in the moment, you're kind of like as he starts, you're like, yeah, like hell yeah, and then you're like, oh, whoa.
Yeah. Like thinking about that right now, it's making me. Oh, I remember him hitting. He went like this to the fireplace with her head.
Yeah,
like cracked
that's
her
exactly.
head open.
Yep.
Oh my god, I hated that. I couldn't watch it.
That opening scene though is a good example of Tarantino just being able to take you along like that with his writing and directing, where it starts off and you're like, oh, I kind of like this terrible person, and then you're like, whoa, hold the phone.
Yeah, I literally couldn't watch that. I was like,
yeah, Tarantino's very good at that, and he definitely shows it in that opening scene and in many other places.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I just really like that scene. Like Hans just makes I really wish I knew how to pronounce that name. Pierre.
Frenchman. Just call him the Frenchman.
Okay, yeah, the Frenchman. Okay, so yeah, I just like that he makes him feel like everything's gonna be okay, and then he just takes that away in a millisecond. With this one line where he says he's like, you won't be punished, you'll actually be rewarded. It's like he's like, it's quite the contrary, you'll be rewarded. And then it cuts to the Frenchman's face, and they're doing this like slow dolly in, and it probably lasts like 10 seconds, and it just keeps going in, and you can just see the like terror in his eyes, and he doesn't. I think at that point he's like actually confused. Like he's like, I don't know if to believe if he's if everything's gonna be okay, or if I'm gonna die or something. And then they cut back to Hans, and he's like, "You're sheltering enemies of the state, aren't you?" and then it's like so twisted to like get the information out of the Frenchman, and then like right after this line, they cut to his facial expression of like that dolly in, and he's probably thinking like, "Oh, this can't be right. I can't get away with this that easily." But yeah, like after he knows what he's doing, what Hans is like. After Hans says he knows what he's doing, the Frenchman's doing, I don't know, he just like, what's his name, the actor?
The guy who plays Hans, you mean?
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I can't believe I remembered that. I'm so bad with names.
He just wins at making.
Oh, he's a very good actor.
He just makes it so uncomfortable and anxious. It's just, he's so good.
He's very good at playing like slimy too. Like he's
very like in that scene, he's very cheerful. He's just like, oh, everything's okay, like life's great. This is so easy for me. I'm just here like drinking my milk. And then just immediately has this like straight face, and he's like, you're hiding enemies of the state, aren't you?
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Yes.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
But yeah, it's so good. I love
Very,
it.
very.
I love how long it is too. It just builds that tension up.
Oh yeah.
But
Tarantino's great at building tension. I mean, like if there's any director who's great at combining tension with making you like things you shouldn't like, even for a moment, definitely Tarantino.
Yeah, I think a lot of directors are afraid to do that when they linger on stuff because they think like it's just gonna ruin the pacing or something. But with Tarantino, it definitely builds the tension.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't hurt at all that his dialogue is amazing too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah,
So
extremely good at writing.
So
dialogue.
good. Oh, now that makes me think about Once Upon a Time.
Oh yeah.
Dialogue in that was great.
Everything he writes has amazing dialogue. That's his I'd say that's his strongest suit. Like his other aspects of his writing are obviously very good, but his dialogue is top tier dialogue.
Yeah.
And I love that it's like theatrical dialogue too. It's not he doesn't attempt to do realism dialogue. He's very much in the tradition of theatrical elevated dialogue, and he does it in a way that's not cheesy or bad. He does it in a way that's like, oh, that sounded so cool.
I was trying to look up hold on. The damn, I can't find it, but the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where it's like towards the end where he's high off his ass and he's back at his house and the what's his name, played by Austin Butler, I don't remember his name, the guy with the long hair, walks in. And he says something about a devil.
Yeah, he's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the devil.
Yeah. And he's like, no, it was something
stupider than that.
Yeah. Oh, that was so good. And then he's like, and then he's like goes like this, and he's like coming up with different names.
Yeah. Oh, such good dialogue.
Something stupider than that.
So good. Speaking of amazing dialogue, that leads into my next pick, the opening scene of Sunset Boulevard. I can't remember have you seen Sunset Boulevard? So
no, but
Sunset Boulevard. Do you know the premise of it? It's about a screenwriter, and the screenwriter is the narrator. So it gives us an excuse to have very lofty dialogue in the narration.
Oh, you know what? I was supposed to watch this for a class, but we never did.
Oh, damn! You missed out on an amazing opening scene. So we see like the police coming towards. They're all rushing towards somewhere, right? And then this it's like the epitome of like noir type openings. We see the police coming in. There's like there's the proximity effect, low talking like this narration, and they rush over. They're at this big old Hollywood money house, like from the golden age, and there's this pool. And they're just all taking photos of this dead body floating in the pool. And then we cut to this shot looking up through the water at the body, like that's looking down at us. And we see all the people above him. And the narrator's talking. And it's revealed the narrator is the guy in the pool who's dead. And it's like, whoa, grand. It's good stuff. And the way he's self-deprecating too in his description, it's so good at that noir, like, bleakness, because he's like, oh, he's just a aspiring screenwriter with a couple B movies to his name, and it's like it's so epitome of noir. It's great, such a good opening. And whenever I'm trying to write anything that has a noir type of feel to it, that's my go-to for attempting to emulate, is that opening scene right there. And I know there's a lot of other great noir films to pick from, and that maybe you could even argue that Sunset Boulevard's not noir. You could make that argument. But that opening, though, that is the epitome of what I would consider noir.
You'll read about it in the late editions, I'm sure. You'll get it over your radio and see it on television. Because an old-time star is involved. One of the biggest. But before you hear it all distorted and blown out of proportion, before those Hollywood columnists get their hands on it, maybe you'd like to hear the facts.
You just reminded me of another movie, and I don't know the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
It, I don't know what decade it was, but it was black and white, and they're like, it's a one shot of them driving down the street.
Oh, that's that's not Touch of Evil. That's
What is that?
what's that called? Yeah, I know exactly that, and it just keeps following. It's like the super long.
And then at
opening
the
shot.
end, there's an explosion.
What is that? Is that?
I tried to look it up. I can't find it.
I'm gonna look up long shot opening.
I
Classic
know, that's
film,
what I put in. Long.
explosion. What is that movie? Oh my gosh. It's
What is that?
oh, Workmeister Harmonies came up. That, speaking of long takes and Workmeister Harmonies isn't black and white, but long takes, Workmeister Harmonies, so good. Every single shot's a long take in that film. Anyways, what was it? Not Path.
What was that?
What's the name of that movie? Damn it. It's on the tip of my tongue. It is Touch of Evil. Damn it. I got it right.
I think it is.
Yeah, it is Touch of Evil. Okay.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
That one reminded me of it for some reason.
Yeah. No, yeah, I see the similarities. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't believe I got the title right and didn't realize I got the title right. I was like, is it
I want
Touch
to
of
watch
Evil?
that scene.
Oh, yeah? We'll watch it right after.
I really liked that, yeah. Yeah.
You want to make that an addendum? Insert sixth pick, Touch of Evil?
No, that wouldn't go on my list, but
All right. Yeah, same. I think that'd be objectively something that deserves to be on the top, but it just isn't one of my favorites.
yeah.
Anyways, your turn.
Okay, my last one is The Matrix.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't even think of that.
So I didn't think of it before, but then I was watching it again. I was like, yeah, this was really good. It starts off with this green tint of the Warner Brothers logo, so it's kind of like almost it's almost the like what is the word? It's kind of the same as the Dark Knight one. It's just with the green tint. And then there's this like ominous score and the slow zoom into like the code going vertically up and down. And then the voiceover comes in with Trinity and Cypher.
Is everything in place?
You weren't supposed to relieve me.
I know, but I felt like taking a shift.
You like him, don't you? You like watching him.
Don't be ridiculous.
We're gonna kill him. You understand that?
Morpheus believes he is the one.
Do you?
It doesn't matter what I believe.
You don't, do you?
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
Are you sure this line is clean?
Yeah, of course I'm sure.
And she says stuff like, "Are you sure this line is clear?" And Cypher's saying, "We're gonna kill him." And then she's like, "He's the one." Or she says, Morpheus says he's the one or something like that. And it's so intriguing. Like, they're saying these things and you have no idea what's going on. But when you say stuff like that, it's so dramatic. And you're just like, I gotta know what's going on. Especially with the music. The music is so good.
Really draws you in.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the music with the zoom in. Like, that just adds to it.
Because it's visually pulling you in as it's enticing you.
The literally the score and the zoom in like match up. Like, even if you didn't have the visual and you just had the score, I would just envision a zoom in.
Exactly.
And it just makes it so freaking good. And the last thing I was gonna say was the sound effects of the numbers. They're like synths, and as they like zoom into this one number, I think it's like a 0, and they're zooming into the 0, and you actually go into the 0 where it's like multiplied through the data, and it just gets you hooked right away. It's so good. I loved it.
Extremely.
Yeah.
It gives you it gets you prepared for what you're about to experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing compared to what you're about to see. But
Exactly.
yeah,
You're
it's
going
just so
you're going down the rabbit hole. Through the zero. It's a rabbit.
Oh, you know what? That's probably intentional.
I didn't even think of that until you were just describing it right
Wow,
there.
yeah, that's totally intentional.
Yep. Damn. All right. Revelations. This is what people subscribe
That
for.
just
These
made me like it
hard-hitting
even more.
observations. All right.
So good.
Do we have anything else to add about that?
Let me think.
I think that last realization just blew my mind. How
Well, you know
far
what?
the
I'm
rabbit
gonna
hole
I'm gonna
goes.
play the scenes, like parts of the scenes for when we're talking over them.
Gotcha.
So I'll throw the Matrix one in there for the.
Perfect. All right. So do I go to my next one? All right. My fifth and final pick is one that I don't think I would count as one of the objectively best openings, but it's one of the most recent films that the opening I was like, oh, I am so on board with this. And Maggie can probably predict what I'm about to say. The Lighthouse was. But
I definitely didn't think that would be on your list.
yeah, like I said, objectively, it's a good opening, but I don't think it's like one of the best, objectively speaking. But I remember in the theaters, the second the opening registered with me, I was like, I'm so on board. So I did not realize going into this film that it would be 1.33, which is, this is going to sound weird. It's one of my favorite aspect ratios. Nosferatu was shot in 1.33, and that's one of my favorite films of all time. Because the cinematography in Nosferatu is beautiful, and the Lighthouse cinematography is beautiful. But from the opening where it's just black screen, and at this point you have no clue what the aspect ratio is because it's just white text, black screen, the Lighthouse. And then it starts to fade in with like the foghorn, and it's like, brrr, and then you realize it's fading in, and you're like, this is 1.33. This aspect ratio hasn't been used in like 90 years. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm so on board. I am so ready for this. And then it goes into some extremely well-composed shots of the boat coming into the island. And then when you see them getting on the island, and it's all very, very, very meticulously composed, very reminiscent of, well, like I said, of like F.W. Murnau. And that's probably why I like The Lighthouse so much, is because F.W. Murnau is one of my favorite directors, and The Lighthouse gives me F.W. Murnau vibes. It feels like something he would make if he was still alive and hadn't died in like the 30s, or did he die in the 40s? Basically, he was, long gone. He was making films in the 20s. So, but that opening, just because it gave me such strong vibes as one of my favorite directors who obviously hasn't made a film in like 80 years, immediately hooked me. As soon as I recognized what the aspect ratio was, all of that, I just immediately 100% with the foghorn there being like, giving us that tone, immediately fell in love. I was like I said, when you really analyze it, it's not an amazing opening. It's just a good opening, a very good opening. Definitely not one of the best of all time at all. It just happened to hit me in all the right ways. It happened to have all the things I love, which made me immediately fall in love with it. And so, yeah, it tickled my fancy.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
yes, unfortunately.
I think I've seen like stills of it and probably like few seconds of some scenes, but it seemed like there was a lot of like up-angled shots.
Oh, yeah.
and like the cinematography was really cool because it looked very terrifying with like
Yes.
were there a lot of like lightning strikes, or there's some lightning strike where it hits his face or something.
So I can't say what that is without spoilers. So,
Okay, well,
yeah.
that's not what I wasn't trying to get into it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that
But
it looks terrifying.
Oh yes, even though, like I said, I don't think it's objectively one of the best openings, I would be willing to argue that it's objectively one of the best films of like the past 20 years. So I know that's a big claim. That's a really big claim. But I would be happy to defend that. But yeah, it's beautiful cinematography, absolutely gorgeous. Also, I'm slightly biased just because like I said, that aspect ratio of making me think of Murnau immediately. I love that aspect ratio, and it's so rare. I can't think of another film that's used that since the 30s, maybe. Because usually if something's going to go for an old school look, they're going to go for 4:3 or the Academy ratio, all those old square ones. But nothing uses 1.33, nothing except for the Lighthouse, and I loved it for it. I think that's all I have to say about that opening. Oh, actually, one of the things is I remember in the opening, when I was watching the director's commentary, in theaters, I remember thinking, when you see the lighthouse for the first time on the island, thinking that looks like a miniature. Did they use a miniature for this? And in the commentary, the director goes, "That looks like a miniature, but that actually wasn't." He's like that's just an actual shot of the island, and it just looks like a miniature. So I thought that was kind of funny that I was thinking exactly what he thought about it and did think it was a miniature. Anyways, yeah, that's definitely all I have to say about it now. And you need to watch it, Maggie.
So we watched WandaVision 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
And so episode 8 came out last night, and it was good. It was really good. We didn't feel like we had a lot to say on it.
Yeah. It was mostly recap and exploring characters' traumas in the past.
Yeah.
So we can't really talk about it that much without going into spoilers or by being so vague that it's essentially meaningless to talk about.
I also think it wasn't as definitely interesting and intriguing, and I enjoyed it, but I think because I already knew what happened in these, I guess, I won't say the spoiler, but when she's a kid and they go back, we didn't know that, but I think some of
we knew the broad
events,
strokes.
Yeah, some of the events that they go back to in the past, you already knew about. So I guess that might be a reason why I don't have much to say on it.
It propelled the story very little. It didn't not propel it at all, because it did add some stuff and moved some things forward. But there was only maybe 1 or 2 scenes that actually moved the story forwards. The rest of it was, like we said, exploring past stuff.
Yeah, it definitely did not meet the same pacing as the previous episodes.
It was longer too.
Yeah, it was 10 minutes longer.
And and it didn't add anything to Monica Rambeau's story, which we had a big reveal about her in the last episode, and in this one, nothing added.
Obviously they're gonna probably the next episode or something.
It just felt strange to follow up such a big reveal about her with ignoring her.
Yeah, and also we didn't get she's still in the same time period of the last episode, right?
I know.
Because she goes into the base. Yeah, she goes into the basement.
Right.
Remember at the end of the last episode, and then she starts from there. Yeah, so she's still in the same one.
When they went outside, were they in a new one though? Because they were the 90s.
They didn't go outside.
Yeah, at the end of the episode. They
went through a doorway.
At the end of the episode, they were outside again. Remember with the kids?
Yeah, that was the same.
That was the same time period?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that because they didn't change it again, every episode they changed the time period, so I think maybe because they didn't change it, it felt a little
different. They're still in the 2000s, right? Yeah.
Not different. It was just I expected a different time period, so I think because they didn't switch to it, it just felt not as
WandaVision-y.
Yeah, or just, I don't want to say not interesting.
It wasn't shot like a sitcom this time. So we're watching this because it got really good reviews, and it just seemed interesting, especially with hearing about how they were going to go through all the different eras of television, which they have done. And I like it a lot. It's fun to explore just from a filmmaker's perspective, seeing how they replicate each episode with a different era of TV. How about you, Mags? What did you find most drawing you to this, or was it the same?
The same thing.
Same.
I like seeing how they paid homage to a lot of different TV shows from the past, like The Office, Modern Family, most recently in the past episode, and then
Twilight Zone,
Dick Van Dyke. and I can't think of the other ones.
Yeah,
But I just like how they went back to different TV show styles and stuff.
yeah, very much so. And if you are on the fence about checking the show out, guys who are listening, because
okay, that's what I was gonna say.
yeah,
Go
so
on.
if you're on the fence because you're like, I don't know, I don't like Marvel that much, or I'm just not into superheroes, me and Mags may be into Batman, but we're not really big Marvel people.
Yeah, not at all.
yeah.
I don't like Marvel movies. Like, not Marvel movies, but I'm not crazy about the Avengers.
Yeah, I haven't seen Endgame or Infinity War or Civil War. I haven't seen a single movie that Scarlet Witch was in. So
Me either.
so
I think I saw parts of Endgame, but I haven't seen any of the other ones.
yeah, so you don't have to be a Marvel fan or even a Scarlet Witch fan ahead of time to enjoy this, because I wasn't, and I like it very much.
And you also don't have to have like pre-existing knowledge from those movies if you haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that obviously they call back to a lot of stuff from those movies and backstories and all that, but I don't think it's necessary to understand the story.
I think everything that is necessary to understand, they will explain. Like, for example, with Vision being dead in the backstory, they have a character at one point like explicitly say like, oh yeah, Vision was killed by Thanos, and it's like, oh, okay.
If it's not in the story, it's in the dialogue. Like they just have it there.
Yeah, so if you don't know the backstory, you'll figure it out.
They definitely catered it to that too. Like they knew there was going to be people watching it that weren't familiar with the other movies.
Exactly.
So definitely check it out because it's a really good show. Like really good, very well done.
Yes.
Regardless if you like Marvel movies.
Some people I know, I've heard some people that after the first 2 episodes, they didn't really see where it was going. You'll like that later on.
Yeah.
So you'll like the fact that the first couple of episodes don't feel like they're going anywhere, because
also
story relevance. That's why.
Yeah, some people don't like black and white. Like they see black and white and they're like, no thanks. I'm just gonna turn it off. Just don't base it off of that. I would watch at least 3 episodes.
Yes.
It's
also
nothing like what you think.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
All right. I think that wraps it up for this episode, right?
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Directors on Tap.
As always, you can check out our Instagram and Twitter pages at Directors on Tap to see some updates and get behind the scenes content.
Join us next week for more film talk.